Joined right now by Sports Director Jeff Hathhorn. Jeff, good morning, pal. How are you?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Doing good, man. Thanks for eating the innings for us on Friday. You were the long guy out of the pen. You threw over 140 pitches, as I understand it.
Yeah, I was Kyle Nicholas.
I hope you weren't Kyle Nicholas. Jeff, are the Pirates good? Like I know that they lost 2 of those 3 games to the Giants in pull your hair out fashion, but they win 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. They could have swept the Giants, or they could have won 2 out of 3. Then you win 2 out of 3 against the Braves. Are we believing in them having some traction here, or does what happened in the San Francisco series still make you go, not quite there yet?
Yeah, I mean, they have flashes of good. I mean, they had 2 really nice games against the Braves. I mean, that's a good team, a good hitting team. And then, they didn't throw in that Braves series their 2 best pitchers and still won 2 out of 3. So you feel good about that. At times they can put it together. You've had different guys step up recently offensively. And I'm not going to read too much into Chris Sale. Chris Sale is on a roll this year. I mean, he's mowing down everybody. So, yeah, I mean, the problem is they're not consistently good. And until they get consistently good, then you can't really think, have some kind of dream about September.
Jeff, what's going on in AAA Indianapolis? It seems like when guys get sent down, their stances change at the plate and they start crushing the ball. I mean, look at Henry Davis and what he's doing right now. Jack Sawinski, I read somewhere that his stance has changed a little bit. Now he's crushing the ball. Obviously, Nick Gonzalez was, and G1 Bay. What's the difference between up here? I know the competition is different. We all know that. But is there something glaring that is different from guys when they get sent down or they are playing in Indianapolis compared to whenever they're up here with the Pirates?
Well, they're playing now in a Little League field to boost their confidence. So those fly balls become home runs. No, I think some of the pressure is off. I think that's part of it. You can just go down there and be yourself. You make an adjustment. I think maybe at times in the majors you make adjustments, but because you've had success there, maybe you're not 100% buying in. But when you get sent down, like there isn't a choice. Like I'm not getting the job done. I got to make changes. I'm going to go down. And it's still early for Sawinski, but man, what Henry Davis is doing and using the middle of the field again, he got so pull happy down at the major leagues. Now that he can go use those, see that spray chart, include balls, up the middle, even into right center. That's where you need to see those guys. I do think though it's more, the competition isn't as good. I mean, they're seeing lesser pitching. That has to be a factor in this. And I do think a little bit of the pressure is off. And I do believe to an extent this, when you see guys go down and have success, I think there is a confidence that, all right, if Gonzalez is doing it, if Bay is doing it, like I can go down there and find it too. And I think that mentality plays a little bit of a factor.
I'm wondering then why they don't DFA Rowdy Tellez. I don't think anybody's going to pick him up. I think that's a safe assumption. He would wind up then in AAA. I'm not understanding what they're doing here, Jeff. And I know that Ke'Bryan Hayes is purportedly close. It would make a ton of sense to me if the corresponding move is to DFA Rowdy.
Yes. And I guess I don't hold out hope for the man, because I don't want to see that happen to anybody personally. But it does make the most sense. I mean, Trello could play first base in a pinch. I mean, I don't get the allure. And you're right. I mean, he could go down there and he could work on his game, and maybe he finds it, and maybe he comes back up after the All-Star break or whenever, and he becomes a factor for them like they had hoped when they signed him. But I mean, and just having him ride the bench game after game, what good is that doing anybody?
Right.
I mean, he can't be a pinch runner. I mean, he's one specific talent. So you're kind of, you got a guy wasting away at the bench, and it's like when he's at home, you're almost afraid to put him in because you know what the reaction's going to be.
Jeff, we're going to get into this in a little bit later, but I want to get your thoughts on Patrick Queen over the weekend said that he signed with the Steelers because he wanted to win. He had other offers and other teams that wanted him and other contracts on the table. How do you take that from whenever a player of his stature, a big-time linebacker, was like, I want to win, so I want to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers? How do you take that?
Well, I think we joke about it. but when you play for a coach that's never had a losing season, I mean, that's a start. You look at the other guys on that defense and you think, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to make this group even better. And offensively, they've got a new coordinator. Of course, at the time he signed, you don't know exactly some of the other things that are going on. Although, you feel with Russell Wilson, like there are opportunities there. It's a franchise that is committed to winning. I know we have questions about things like this, but I think from the outside, especially if what has Steelers won? 7 of the last 8 against the Ravens. So when the Ravens see them, they see a team that's winning. And I still think, even though they haven't won a playoff game in forever and it's not good enough, there's still a perception that if you go to the Steelers, you're going to win. And maybe you can be convinced that, all right, Patrick, you're the guy that's going to get us over the hump. You're going to be the reason that we're going to win a playoff game. And when we win one, look out. It's going to be back like it was in the day.
Jeff, from OTAs, you got Nate Herbig. Nate Herbig starting at center for the Steelers right now. Any reason for concern there, or is this just, hey, Zach Frazier, you got to earn the thing?
Zach Frazier, you got to earn the thing. I'm not worried about – listen, I mean, this is one of those things that's like practice during the year. You can't say too much, but just safe to say it's not like they're out there running over and over of team drills. It's a lot of individual stuff. So whether you're doing it with the first team individually or with one other player, or you're doing it as a second group, it's essentially the same. I don't have a concern that Zach Frazier won't be the starting center because of the first week of OTAs. Now, if we get into minicamp and he's taken none, maybe it's a little bit more, but then again, he could start out in training camp and be the guy. I still think he'll be the starting center.
Jeff, I'm going to be honest with you. Crow and I, we had a long weekend, a lot of stuff going on. We caught up on a lot of things, but didn't really dive into this situation in detail. And I'm sure that you could explain it a lot better than we can, and actually educate us on the NCAA passing the rule or whatever with the athletic departments. What do we got going on here, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, schools are going to pay now. You don't need a third party. The schools have agreed that they're going to pay student athletes, and they've come up with this plan of a salary cap around $20 million for athletic departments. How you divide that's up to schools, which is going to create all kinds of issues. If you have schools that have multiple, where it's not just a slam dunk that, okay, X amount's going to go to the football team or X amount's going to go to the basketball team. And what are you going to do with Title IX? What if you have like Pitt, you have a really good volleyball program, like they deserve some of that money, but football's going to want it. Capel's going to want it. I mean, listen guys, and they're trying to push the third parties out or try to get more control of it. But if you're an NIL guy, you're not going to want to relinquish that power. It's almost like if you're one of those guys, you're kind of a pseudo NFL owner. I don't want to give any of that up. So there's still some things that need to be final approval, but essentially now colleges are going to pay these guys, and then they're going to say, well, we're paying them, but they're not our employees. That's what's going to be next, because the athletes, understandably, if you're being paid by somebody, aren't you their employee?
Yep, you're going to want health care and rights and
right.
potential unionization.
And here's what I fear. We all love college sports. You could feel it with fans that it's like they're starting to, get, if nothing else, they're getting annoyed by all of this. And I don't know what this is going to do for the popularity, but it can't help. And I hope they figure out something, because, man, there's nothing like a college Saturday. There's nothing like college basketball, college volleyball. We've seen it at Pitt. There's some awesome sporting events that we get to watch, and great opportunities for these young men and women. And man, greed is just taken over this thing.
Oh, there's no question about it. And I don't think for a second that this changes NIL. I really don't. You think about $20-ish million for every university, and they're going to spread it out. Well, you've got donors that are already going to give money to the athletic programs of their choosing as is. And then you've got donors that are going to funnel money through collectives and through NIL. And then you've got donors that are now going to want their money to be used to pay student athletes. You've got the same amount of donors, and now there's another pipeline, another avenue for money to flow down to the players. I don't think this solves. I think it makes maybe players more happier, but I don't think this solves any of the other problems that the NCAA has.
Well, it gives more money to the athletes. I guess that's the biggest positive.
Sure.
They're going to see more money out of this. And then, Adam, there's the ego part of this. I mean, these guys, like, hey, I want to be the guy in my company. I bought the quarterback. I bought this guy in. He's my guy. He's going to come over and meet some of you guys tomorrow. There's that side of it, and I just don't see that.
Well, that's a good point, Jeff, because there's only – so let's say, like Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's, third in the Heisman Trophy voting, and Kenny Pickett leads Pitt to an ACC championship. Let's say he would have been eligible and would have come back the next year. The university could pay him so much money, but you can't pay him that much money because you've still got the rest of the money you have to spread out to the rest of your student athletes. Thus, that's where I'm saying NIL still going to exist. To your point, you're going to have whatever donor XYZ in the shadows who's going to want to pay that quarterback, and that quarterback's going to want to take that money because the university, while still paying, isn't going to be able to pay as much as that player's probably going to feel like they're worth.
And guys, for these athletes to want to come to your school, you're going to have the facilities that attract them as well.
Right.
How are you going to pay for those facilities?
And I don't think it's good for the Pitts, the West Virginias of the world. I do think the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Michigans, they're all going to wind up being fine.
Yes.
So I don't know.
What? At some point, it's going to affect them too.
And it's rich. People always say the rich get richer. I mean, how much richer can you get? I mean, you win the majority, and you go to the majority of these playoffs anyhow. And we're just focusing specifically on football. Well, thank you, Jeff. This was fun and depressing all at once.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to
Thanks,
you.
Jeff
Hathhorn, our sports director. Check out what he's got going on at the website, 937thefan.com.